It's 6 o'clock.
It's 6 o'clock.
Right.
Good evening and welcome to the Grant County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for August 7th, 2023. If you would, please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Atkins,
Here.
Howell,
Yes, here.
Johnson,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Pearson,
Here.
Hartman.
Here. Okay, on the agenda, approval of minutes, June 5th, 2023. That was a fairly long meeting.
That was fairly long written for the minutes too.
Wow.
Well, that's all right.
Yep. So I make a motion, we accept the minutes as they're written.
Are there any additions or corrections?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson and a second by Mr. Long. Would you give us a roll call, please?
Atkins,
Yes.
Howell,
Abstain.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Motion passed. Then we have approval for the special meeting minutes of June 12th, 2023, a continuation of the first meeting. I saw one major point here in the discussion about allowable decibels and the noise ordinance. Testimony from Pastor Todd Dalton said that concerning music, there would be no outdoor amplified music. Anything amplified will be 100% indoors. I believe that needs added to that paragraph on the last page of the minutes. Fifth one down.
Where was that at?
Okay, fifth one down here.
Okay, I got it.
You got it,
Yeah.
yeah. There was amplified music would be 100% indoors. After reviewing the film, I thought that was a rather major point because one of the biggest concerns seemed to be noise and outdoor noise. Okay. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, do we have a motion? I'll give you more time if you need it.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented with the one exception included.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Pearson, a second from Mr. Howe. Would you give us a roll call, please?
Atkins,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Moving on to findings of fact. First one is 3SP23, Kingdom Event Center, Dan Young.
We've got a correction there at the top. We've got 03SP-22 at the top.
Okay, and it was 23. Okay. Change that. Is the board ready for a motion?
I'll make the motion as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Long and a second by Mrs. Jones. Could we have a roll call, please?
Atkins,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Motion passed. We have the next findings of fact for 02 BZA V-23 Kingdom Event Center.
This is for the sign.
This
right?
is for the sign,
For the sign.
right.
Yeah.
On the signature page, Larry Strange has worked his way back on that page.
We need to correct the signature page. Yes. Okay, do we have any other additions or corrections?
I'd say we accept it as written, except for
The one
the
correction?
one correction.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Excuse me, I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson and a second by Mr. Howe. We have a roll call, please.
Atkins,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. It has old business petitions, review of rules of procedure, final draft.
We don't do Troy Freeman.
I'm gonna Did we not do Troy?
No.
I'm sorry. Okay. 03 BZA V-23 Troy Freeman. Getting ahead of myself. Okay. Do we have any additions or corrections to this finding of fact?
I move that we accept it as written, the docket.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. Johnson and a second from Mr. Pearson. We have a roll call, please.
Elton,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to move the old business to the end of the agenda. And move on to new business petitions. So we will open a public hearing on docket 04 BZA V-23, John Marvel at 0757 East 800 South Fairmount, Indiana. Mr. Marvel, would you please sign in with your name and address for the record there? Mr. Malat, would you introduce the petition?
Yes, this is again BZA docket 04 BZA-23. Applicant is John Marvel. Application is for a development standard variance from the area-wide zoning ordinance to allow ground-mounted solar panels to be installed 13 foot from the east property line instead of the required 20 foot in an agricultural zone district. The applicant, part of the reason for this variance is the applicant recently split the property. We did receive a phone call, put together a letter that you should have from the neighbor, who gave his approval for the variance. The purpose for the 13 foot instead of the required 20 is that Mr. Marvel would like to line up, there are already solar arrays present. He would like to line the solar arrays up in order. The property Mr. Marvel owns, still owns currently. He is planning in the future to build a house on that property. If they want to know, as far as the staff recommendation, we would put forth a favorable recommendation for Mr. Marvel. I've noted in the pictures, this is kind of an open area, we're not onto anything. And again, with the neighbor's approval to it, it's just cosmetic for the most part. Mr. Roth, anything you'd like to add?
Just, I split the property. We like the solar panels, the relatively free energy they gave us. Those solar panels went with the split to the new neighbor that has bought our house, and we wanted to put in more. The most logical place is back where they are. If we moved them to the west, they'd be shaded by trees and to get in the way of the barn. Obviously, we can't move them east. If we moved them further south, we'd get in the way of an existing orchard. And we did work with SolarCam, the same vendor of the original solar panels. They think this is a good idea. Appreciate your consideration.
Yes.
The old solar panels are how old?
I think they're about 8 or 9 years old now.
So the old ones aren't really that, I say old, but they're not that old.
Now, okay, you said the property was split. Is that the blue line in this picture?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, and the house is in the section with the red lines, then, right?
The existing house,
Is
yes.
this existing house? Do you own that house now?
No,
You
that's
sold
now
that.
Brian's.
So this-
Yes,
This part of the land is sold.
yes.
Is this red line back here a property line, or what is that?
yes.
Yes, that Wendell Cates owns that around there, and he's also blessed this.
Is this accurate, that the solar panels are in the field?
I don't
In
think
our
so.
GIS, we know it can go 10, 15. That is the property line that they've got.
In the GIS?
Yeah,
There may not be the actual
we figure. it-
surveyed line.
Yeah.
Do you think it more lines up with the blue line over here?
We had this surveyed, and the solar panels were on our property by
At
the
the
survey.
time? Okay,
Yes.
good. That's good to know. All right. Then the new arrays, were they going to be here in the blue area? Which it looked like on the other picture they would be, as the new ones.
With the orchard? You're saying?
Yeah, they're
The new ones
basically
were
going
right
into the
underneath the
orchard.
ends of the other ones.
Yes.
Is this
they're-
correct?
They're in line with the two panels that are west, most west now, and they're going south.
So they would be on the other property?
My new property, yes.
Okay. All right.
So where the house exists, that's Mr. Coriel who called.
Okay, that was his letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he bought the existing solar panels.
Yes,
So the property line was actually cut around the solar panels.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure I really wanted to do that in retrospect, but I did.
Okay. And so these would be for your property and your use, and the other ones go for his use?
Yes, we're
Okay.
building a house there, and we want solar.
All right.
So Ryan, what's our setback for solar panels and property lines in this case?
For this one, no, we're talking minor, we're not talking commercial.
Correct.
For this one, the side setback would be 20 foot.
And that's residential?
Yeah. And he's wanting 13.
It's in agriculture.
Yeah, it's in agriculture, but it's a residential
So is-
installation for solar? So does it go under residential solar rules?
Yeah, because you're less than an acre.
Okay.
So it's governed by Indiana residential code.
Okay.
Are we asking for 13 because that's what's there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't think it would look right to make it 15 or 17.
I'm not real sure, I need somebody to point me out right where they're gonna sit. I want to, oh,
Should have.
I'm looking at it, I want you to point me out.
Right there. Those two.
See, they line up with this one here.
But that's still on the other guy's property.
No, that's on the new property that splits here. It'd be right there in the blue area.
You gotta go around them there.
I'm hoping you can solve it.
So does this boundary really have the jogs in it?
On GIS it does.
You know, the GIS thing creates some issues for us. What's the solution to that?
We've we've got to get in and get into boundaries and yeah, they tell us that it is, how do they tell us? That it shouldn't be, it's not exact, basically.
Before GIS, how did we do it?
On this property, there were old oil well casings and concrete posts that had established it for something like 100 years, and it was still basically what was used.
In most cases, you'd have to fall back into surveys, which is getting into thousands
You had to walk.
today.
Getting into what?
Thousands of dollars for a survey.
Oh, to have it resurveyed. But before GIS come, how did area plan deal with property lines?
Used old aerial maps.
Were they more accurate than GIS?
It's hard to tell, because a lot of times, I don't think so.
But when it was originally, though, it had to be surveyed by the seller. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah, they would have to show a copy of the survey.
And today, with Wimmer's passing, Wimmer generally was one of the.
Go-to guys.
And he was 1,000 to 1,500. So for something like this, you'd be asking for someone to go out and spend $1,500 for a couple of feet.
So we don't have the ability to read a legal description and go out and determine where those points are.
And be accurate.
And be accurate.
Yeah, you gotta be accurate.
We thought we paid for accuracy.
Well, you would have with a real survey.
Did you have it surveyed when
In
you sold
Jonesboro,
the
I've got a
property?
brick in the ground that tells me where the corner of the lot is. Now, if I want to dig up that brick, I can move it a little bit. I'd have to do it late at night when the neighbor wasn't watching.
When we had the property split, we had it surveyed.
Okay, so you're pretty certain of where the blue line is.
Yeah, and it's, where the
Okay.
blue line shows on here is not quite where I thought it was,
Okay,
Where'd
But
you
what-
think it was?
behind the solar panels. And there's a concrete footer at the far northeast corner as well, and a few other things. And Mr. Cates and we are good with what's there.
okay.
So Wendell's good with the
Yes,
fact that the panels are not on him.
yes. At least he's always said he's been good with it.
So why was the other little jog put in there?
Back by the barn?
No, it'd be up in the corner.
Yeah, that little jog.
Right here, where it goes.
The
There
very
was a
little-
solar panel in?
Just before
You're
you
talking
get
There was an old corn crib there that's now just a pad of concrete. And there's a couple, quote, markers there, and it builds in a jog.
So you sold him the concrete.
No, I did not sell him the concrete.
Oh, okay.
That's,
Who was it, Wendell's?
the concrete's mine. You know, it's behind the barn there.
Yeah,
The corn crib was behind the barn.
right there.
It's right here.
Yeah, what I'm trying to figure out.
What that little notch is, that
Yeah.
little notch, yeah.
I don't
Why is
understand.
that jog down to the red line?
Yeah.
Yeah, it equals with the red line,
Yeah,
which
that's
we feel the
because
red
you see
line's
on the
incorrect.
barn that's there on the north, he's seeing the cement behind it.
Yeah.
Used to be a building, so
Yeah.
the line's going around that building.
Yeah, it's just odd that it makes a jog there like that small
Yeah.
jog.
It was there when we bought it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, it was already there when you bought it.
Yeah,
Okay.
back in, what, 1990 something?
Was Larry Manship the surveyor during that time?
I remember that name. I think he
Yes.
was.
Mhm. He was very accurate, so.
All right then, so the setback, is that from the east-west line or the north-south line
It's east-west line.
that you want to be closer to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how far are the existing solar panels from your new property line?
You know, we put a fence there, and the surveyor that put it in this time said we met the requirements, and I forget what he said the requirements were, but the fence was there for that reason.
'Cause it looks like it's right on the end of the solar panels.
You know, it is fairly close. Forgive me, there's a building up closer to the house that he honored setback on. And I think back there, that fence may not have met all the rules, but it was,
That's what I'm wondering is whether, when you split that, whether you actually meant the requirements to be away from those solar panels with your east boundary at the solar panels.
you approved it. I don't know. You know, the surveyor worked with your office
Okay. How long ago was that split?
last year.
Is there anybody objecting to this?
We haven't got to that yet.
We're there.
I think we're there too. Are there any other questions for Mr. Marvel here? Okay, you may be seated. Thank you, sir. Is there any opposition to this petition? If so, would you come up now? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at this time. And it is time for board discussion of this petition.
I don't care, both kinds are in cool. They're okay with it, the way it's spread, he should be fine.
So would you say that you bought the barnyard instead of the house? Because I went out and looked at it, it looked like a barnyard where you divided and split, and you're on the west side.
We used to own the whole 3.5 acres. We were the people that split it. So we kept the barnyard, the barn, grassy area, the orchard, we raised garden bed out front.
You was mowing the lawn when I was out there.
Go on, may have been my wife.
It was.
I know if Larry Manship, the first time, he's very exact and very good at what he does. And he was a surveyor at that time, and he.
I think we're fine with what
He
we're
doesn't make
doing.
mistakes. He
My
doesn't.
question would be on the one that's already done, and
Done
I'm
business with
not
him for years when I
gonna
know
open that up at this time.
That's another can of worms.
That probably was done by him. I don't know who did this.
Do you have any recommendation
Yeah, it probably.
on the ones that are already there and very close to the new property line? Is there a variance needed for that?
8 years old.
At some point in time when the property's sold, is that gonna be any problem, or we're just,
Yeah, we definitely concern, we know about half of what we deal with is because these lines are incorrect and.
yeah, but it may not be 20 feet away.
Right.
It could be 10 feet away. Just kind of looking at the field and how far the field is off the panels.
Yeah.
You can see it's a lot closer than that. And I feel comfortable with what we're doing on the new installation, giving a variance there. I just was wondering if something else needs to be done for the existing solar panels, and would that really mean that the current owner of the property should ask for a variance so that there's no problem when he goes to sell it? If he goes to sell it, But
Is there any obstruction of view caused by either the old or the new solar panels?
It's wide open, that's.
All wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pictures I've got, like, to the east, to the west, it's wide open right there, other than there's an orchard.
Yeah.
yeah, behind him to the north is field, wide open. The ones that are going in would be in front of that, not changing the view, really.
when you say Mr. Cates has no problem with where the panels are according to these lines.
He does not. I remember a discussion about it doesn't look like the lines quite match the survey, and I walked through them with him. He just asked for an explanation of it. He said it was fine. I'm sure he would tell me if he wasn't.
And Chip, what you're looking at is the ones going in, not the
Yes,
existing.
yes.
I talked to him today. He's fine with where these are going in, the new one.
Okay,
We would definitely be one to speak up on that issue.
any other questions from the board? Is the board ready for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve,
We have a motion to approve the petition.
yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Jones and a second by Mr. Johnson. Can we have a roll call, please?
Atkins,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Motion approved. You have your variance, sir. Good luck to you.
He's gonna try to sell it.
What did you say?
He's gonna try to sell it.
Yeah.
That picture- picture as well.
Okay.
But we're okay.
This might not be right, it might be better, I don't know.
Next public hearing is for docket 04SP-23, Center Township Fire Department. Would you come up, sir? And sign in, name and address. Would you give us your name, sir?
My name is Nicholas Woodruff with PD Signs.
Okay. Mr. Malat, would you introduce the petition?
Again, this is docket number 04 SP-23. Petitioner is the Center Township Fire Department. They are petitioning for, to install a digital sign by special exception to replace the existing interior illuminated sign. The new sign will be installed in the same location as the current sign. Fire station's current zoning is professional business. Professional business definition is established as a buffer generally between commercial and residential districts, permitting selected professional and business uses having limited contact with the public. Notes I have on the property, where the sign is going to be located, they have a auto repair shop to the west. There's a bank to the east. VA hospital is to the south. Residential area is to the north, but the fire station is actually in between the sign and residential. Did note that 38th Street is a highly traveled street, would be very visible area to convey community information. The digital sign does fall under the county's digital sign ordinance for brightness, legibility, transitions, display time, etc. And then the one thing I just put in here, it's 4 by 8 or 32 square foot requirement for professional business. 60 square foot is your max, and 15 foot in height is your max. So it is within the professional business guidelines. Anything else you'd like to?
The funding for the sign, because it's going in a volunteer fire department, was actually funded through FEMA, through their SAFER grant, which stands for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grants. This year, they only awarded 3, 2 of them going to major entities in the greater Indianapolis area, and then the Center Township sign. The department believes that the sign will provide major advantages to the township community, the residents and the businesses, including public safety bulletins, weather statements, recruitment for increasing public safety personnel counts, and several important messages for the community.
Now, when I was by there, I noticed that directly east of the fire station is a house. You can see that in this
It's in between the bank and the fire
full-size
department.
picture there. And they have a window right there. And the sign is going to be right here. So will this sign be operating at night?
Most likely, yes, but it does have a dimmer switch that'll be automatically activated at sunset. So it won't be
Okay.
as bright during the evening.
Okay. Now, is it actually right in that little area going to be placed there between the flagpole and the sidewalk?
So there's current, that's correct. Where that current landscaping is where the proposed site was going to be, is going to be. I know the board of directors at the fire department were talking, and if it was gonna appease the community more, if there was any rebuttal to it, we could actually move it in closer to the building side on the opposite side of the flagpole. That way, everybody was happy. But as of right now, yes, the current proposed install site is right there. There was a sign that was there, but it was damaged in a storm last year.
Yeah. When I drove around the block here, I felt that you could adequately see down the road as long as it was not in that area between the curb and the sidewalk, but between the sidewalk and the building.
Correct. There's actually
And you
9
could pull up
feet.
to the intersection and see down the road.
Right. From the sidewalk to the flagpole base, it's actually 9 feet, so we'll actually have a foot of
You have a
wiggle
foot
room.
in there.
That's what, I know it's not much, but
Yeah.
it won't protrude past the sidewalk and into the street.
Was the old sign illuminated?
It was halogen backed, and it's one of those sign, like the letter tracks that you manually put in there,
Yeah, okay.
which is very
So it had a
horrible during
light
the winter.
shining on it, or was it lit up inside?
It was lit up inside and shine out.
inside, okay.
There had bulbs on the arrow portion of it that would flash
Yeah.
bright.
Okay. All right. Well, I assume if the neighbors were okay with that, they'd probably not object to this,
It's not quite
especially
an
if it-
eyesore either.
if it dims at night.
Right.
Okay, but that, well, we'll get to that anyway. Thank you. Any other questions?
What's the lighting of it? How many, does it say? I didn't read that part. Did it say how much you can put out? He said he had a dimmer.
They would have to follow the ordinance
Yeah.
for digital signs.
You know that better than I.
100,000 hours at full brightness? Is that the life of the bulbs or something? LED
The
bulbs?
panels, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
We still go out though. I know LEDs go out, don't they, Chip?
Do you have a variable dimmer for this?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you have a variable dimmer?
I think it just goes from like daylight brightness to evening brightness. I wouldn't know the specifics without contacting the manufacturer.
Yeah. I think
They try to be pretty compatible
I
with
think
everything.
we had someone else in here with a digital board that had a variable setting. In case it,
Sweetser.
in case it was too bright, they could make it less, yeah. And
Sweets or church?
They may have also had hours of operation there in that neighborhood. Okay. Any other questions for, okay, you may be seated, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in opposition to this petition? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And we can move on to board discussion.
I think it's pretty good that they got the grant, but they're expensive.
Mhm.
They're very expensive. So they would've never got it without a grant, probably. You gotta sell a lot of ice cream and a lot of spaghetti. Fish. And
Fish. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Is the board ready for a motion?
You have to beat it out of it, don't you? You beat us out of it. I say we accept it as it's written, and going along with the lights, the law.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson to approve, and we have a second by Mr. Adkins. Can we have a roll call, please?
Atkins,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Motion passed. Sir, you have your special exception. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, in other business, going to go off the agenda slightly and bring in the subject that we were talking about in the last meeting on the amendment to the area-wide zoning ordinance that we wanted to propose, was that in this zoning ordinance, it does say in one place, the director does have the authority granted by the BZA to approve minor variances. And we voted to, last time, pull that out. And we had discussion of whether or not, a brief discussion of whether or not that was in state code. And we also had quite a bit of discussion on why we felt that you should not do that, and that you're putting the executive director in a sometimes difficult spot with that, and that on advice from an attorney, Pat Hess, he recommended not doing that. Do not place your executive director or anyone else in a position of deciding a variance, which would otherwise have been decided by a 7-member board. The reason for that being one person can be subject to playing favoritism, or calls that they're playing favoritism by either the person that did not get the variance they wanted, or by the person in the adjacent property, or another person who might want a similar variance. It is a position to put one person in that is sometimes no win, as we have seen in the decisions that we have to make here from time to time. Now, Mr. Malat did find where that is in state code, and that's fine, and it is in there as an alternate. In other words, it is not mandatory. It is something you could choose. And we were never in the area of thinking that this was illegal. We did not feel it was illegal. We just felt it was a bad way to go, a bad path to take. And that's still the question really involved, not whether or not it's illegal, but whether or not this is something you should do. And we came to the decision that we didn't want to go that way, that sometimes even if someone just thinks they'd like to have a couple feet variance, maybe if it really came down to going through the process of filing for the variance and coming before the board, maybe they could just do without that 2-foot variance. Maybe they'd just be fine building within code, which building within code is the fairest and best way to go anyway, unless there is something really special about a property that needs a variance, something that makes it very difficult to build on that property without a variance. In that case, they should apply for a variance if there was something very difficult. If there's something that's kind of insignificant, yeah, I'd like to go a couple feet closer, and it's easily attained, then they may not go through the, they may not want to go through a process to get that. But if it's easy, just like filing for a building permit, they would go that route. So it puts it really back to the person seeking a variance. Is there really a good reason for that variance? Is there really a need for that variance? And if so, then they could petition the BZA for approval of that variance. Yes, Mr. Atkins.
If the executive director was to make this variance on her own, would that be sidestepping the public hearing process?
It really shouldn't be.
But
They should go ahead and get a staff report. They should go ahead and have a public hearing, because it could be an executive director or it could be a hearing officer. If you're gonna have a hearing officer, you should have a hearing, right? Kind of makes sense, so. And to sidestep the hearing would be to slip something past the area property owners.
So let me make, okay.
We would not want to be
So my question
supporting
is,
that.
if the executive director was to work within this 10% that they have, would there be a public hearing associated with that, or would the public hearing not occur if he was to make that decision, or she?
I think not having a public hearing would definitely deny any opposition the right
That's my concern.
to have their side heard.
That's my concern.
And, I think that would be doubly wrong
Yeah.
to go that route. Yeah,
Here's
I
my
think
concern.
you'd have to go through the same thing, staff report, public hearing, chance for the opposition to be heard, it'd need to be advertised, adjacent property owners would need to be notified that something is occurring.
So would the public hearing be up to the director's discretion as to whether they had one or not?
He could, I suppose, refer it on to the BZA if he wanted to. I don't know about that. I think the petitioner can say, I'd rather have the BZA hear my petition.
I codes to everyone, so most of your questions are in there as far as alternative means.
Sometimes I get lost in that, Ryan.
Well, I mean,
I did look at it, but
it talks about that petitioner applicant does not accept conditions. Obviously, anything that would go against a minor variance is appealed back to you. It's not you're screwed. Anything comes back to you just like it would if I made a decision as an executive director. fighting for or against this. My point of this was, this was brought to you guys, we didn't know if it was code or not. It was discussed amongst you guys, and no one even knew what code was, and you made a decision based off of almost no facts. That was my point. So,
I feel
Our point was that we found this in the area-wide zoning ordinance, and we recommended removing it based on discussion with an attorney, Pat Hess.
who was also not aware it was code.
He did not get into whether or not it was code. He suggested you don't go that route. Don't do this.
Where's our attorney at tonight anyway? Who's our attorney tonight at the
Yeah,
meeting?
no, we did not discuss whether or not it was allowed in code. Actually, we assumed it was allowed, otherwise that would have been a bigger problem, you know. But-
Yeah.
And in your own testimony, you said it was rare if ever,
I'm
so
just
that means
not
you've
getting
never
it.
done it.
You know, there need to be some kind of
No,
legal.
but we've
mechanism.
had people that have
You've
done
had
it.
prior
Yeah,
before.
we got burned a
It's
couple
okay,
times.
or it's
We've had our meetings,
code,
and then it was
lines, issue
no, and then all of a
code,
sudden,
whatever.
the next day he said, yeah, we'll do it.
Attorney can.
He's no longer here though.
sympathize
Yeah.
with his mother.
Well, and this gives alternative means
Yes, it
to
do.
where if I could go out and look at a property, and I could talk to the neighbors, then I could make a decision based off of that. And there could be an appeal process, just like any other appeal.
But you don't need no more work, do you?
No,
That's what
I'm
it
saying.
sounds like.
I'm
It sounds
not-
like it's just more work.
The point was, when did you guys making a decision on the facts? That's bottom line. And the reality of it is, with this, the Indiana code doesn't even ask for your recommendation. This is based off of rules of the APC and the ordinances of the commissioners. The hearing officer is appointed by the area plan commission through an ordinance by the commissioners. This code also does not give limitations to the amount of variance or the amount that a hearing officer can do. So it allows the hearing officer to do variances and special exceptions with no limitation. I'm not asking to do your job. Again, my point was, I'd like for us to at least have the facts. If you guys choose to get rid of it, that's fine. But at least you'll have the knowledge of what the code is.
Ryan?
We're choosing to recommend that it be removed. That's what we were doing.
Ryan, when you deal with this and you're dealing with a bureaucratic decision that you might be making, you better be pretty sure that you're right, because it would be foolhardy on your part to say, I'll just approve it, knowing full well that you can come back to the BZA and the question can come up. You may save some time, and you may, some things just really aren't that big a deal.
Right. Well, and that's, I gave some examples of 27 variances we went through in 3 years. But just like tonight, we're talking about, how sure are you that GSI map is correct?
How sure are you?
Well, that's my point.
That's where I'm headed here.
So, you know, we get into zoning maps and land use tables and things that we're gonna look at as we get to them. But in a lot of cases, the point being, what we find is, the contractor calls and says, hey, come in next week. Well, I don't have my variance yet. Well, you gotta wait a month and a half to get to the BZA first, and that contractor just moves on, and they'll be back in a few months. So that's some of it. Again, there's some common sense to it too. And like I pointed out, out of 27 variances, 15 were a matter of fee, all of which we gave a favorable recommendation and you guys approved. So again, the point was, there is a code, here's the code, now at least make a decision based on that.
Yeah, you don't have to be right or wrong for someone not to like it and stir up trouble. And a 7-member board is less likely to be biased. They weigh the facts, make a determination, fill out findings of fact.
But in instance we're talking about here, a property was sold, or it always has to come back to be surveyed. So that would eliminate us or you and the lines that you're going by. So, but that's kind of rules, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't make them get a survey. We try to use
But-
GIS as best we can.
But if a seller is moving the property or selling that property, then it would need to be surveyed, correct?
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes there's markers out there at
Yes.
the corners, as he spoke of. And during the actual staff report and the visit to the site where all these pictures were taken, time can be spent a little bit with the owner who might know, yes, this marker's right here. This is where the property line is. And know the line on your picture, that's not right.
This GIS thing bothers me.
Yeah.
Is it not reasonable for us to ask that property owner to identify where the property lines are before we approve something for them to move forward?
That would be up to, like I said, if we're going to be asking for surveys, I'm sure the surveyors are gonna be more than happy to do it.
That's an expensive
Well,
cost,
but
that
I'm not-
survey.
Yeah, but I'm not saying ask for a survey unless those property markers can't be identified. I mean, a lot of times you drive a rebar in, you get you a metal detector and you go out there and hear, most people in the older generation know where their property lines are.
Why'd you look at me?
Well, because we're in that age
Yes.
category where we know where our property lines are.
Yes, that's correct.
GIS bothers me, because we're getting calls about how inaccurate the GIS stuff is, and now we've got, our offices being pounded because we're not providing accurate information. I don't think that's a good representation for us to do that.
And unfortunately, it's about 40 communities that's got Snyder or Elevate, and everyone does it the same because it's easier to look at that than to go getting all of those maps that are falling apart, trying to figure it out.
So what is the procedure in the event that a property owner does not agree with our GIS?
They get a survey.
They can get a survey.
The alternative is you get a survey. We try to use common sense. If we, a great one that we had in here was, they wanted a setback. We're looking at the aerial picture, and we've got a row of new houses. And for our property lines to be correct, means that half of this house's septic is into this house's property on a newer home that we know we wouldn't allow that. So we know that property line has to at least be over here, which then makes common sense. Well, they don't need a variance if that's where the property line's at. Because we know this septic can't go into a neighbor's yard.
But it meets the setbacks of that property, correct?
Right, but if we're looking at GIS,
Well,
Make one thing perfectly clear. We are not responsible for where the property line is. The owner comes in, they want to go 5 feet to the property line, or if they want to go 2 feet to the property line, they better know where it is. Because if it turns out, as we've told many of them, as it turns out you want to go 0 from the property line, you better know. Because it's on you, not on us. We gave you a variance to get close. We didn't tell you where your property line is. You got to know, whether you have it surveyed or you know by past markers, or when you bought it, it was surveyed. But that's on them, not
part
us.
of that is it's easier to come in here for $100, get a variance, than it is to go spend $1,500 and get a survey.
Their risk, either way, if they
Right.
make that choice.
And we're pretty good.
Well, in any case, the discussion was really about putting the executive director in that position of making a variance, granting a variance. And I'm just wanting to know, in light of what we've discussed, is there anyone that wants to make a motion for a new vote? Or do you want to stay with the vote we did last month, which was actually 2 months ago, wasn't it? Or a month and a half? Yeah, the 12th.
Well, I've been on the board quite a long time, and I'm probably the one that brought up the 10%. I didn't know all the legal stuff, but I think I brought that up, but I think I'm gonna change my mind. So I think we should hold with, we do it. Just bring it, we're here. Bring it, we're here every month, except for July. I say we keep it.
And we'll do July if there are petitions needing to be dealt with, so.
Like I said, if we check the records, you might find that I wanted that 10%. I thought there'd be less meetings,
Yeah,
because we'd only have 2 or 3 meetings after that.
yeah. Okay, well, we'll stay with that recommendation then. At this time, it is 7 o'clock, but before we adjourn, I would like to open the meeting to open public forum. So if anyone would like to address the board of anything of general interest to the BZA that we have authority or jurisdiction on, you may come up to the podium at this time and sign in, please.
Hi, I'm Linda Sutton, and I've been here the last couple of meetings, and the last couple of meetings when you said, you know, is there someone wanted to speak, I held my arm up a couple times to be recognized and wasn't. So I thought I really needed to come and tell you some information, an update of what's going on in my residential area, and to answer some of the questions that were asked last time and I wasn't allowed to answer, or my husband didn't want to make an issue of it and answer. And the first is you asked Mr. Young about when he had planned the first, you know, the weddings on his event center. He didn't answer you. He just said, I had to cancel I had to cancel the wedding. He did not cancel it. He moved the venue back further in that subdivision, and I later came to find out that it was at his house because I didn't know which house was his. But yeah, we could hear the music and the cheering and the good time, and that's okay. I mean, that's his property, but his answer was a little iffy to you. Now, we complained about the bright lights, and I didn't bring pictures of what it looked like at night. You know, in the daytime, it's fine, and right now the trees hide the lights, which are really nice. But when they have an event, they turn more lights on the north side of the building. So it's really lit up. It's much better than any parking lots around here. So that will become an issue again when the leaves fall off the tree. The outside PA system that he said they're not going to have, maybe they don't have it, but when they have a wedding, somebody brings one, because you can hear the music, you can hear the singing, and not all of the music is what I would choose. And a few feet of trees on one side of the road and 3 yards of trees on another side of the road do not make a sound barrier. You get that noise, you get that sound. Luckily, they go back inside at the end of the ceremony, so it's not that long. Okay, And then one of the issues was, oh, we will shut down at 10:30. We don't plan to operate after that. Well, I go to bed around 11, 12 o'clock, and at 12:20, I just went to bed anyway. They were still leaving there. They don't shut down at 10:30. My guess is probably most of the time it's around 11. Last time, there were still cars leaving right around 11. He stopped and wanted to talk to us at the end of the last meeting, said he wanted to be a good neighbor. So I said, well, that's kind of late, but we'll see. I said, I'd like some idea on how many cars I can expect to come down the road when you have an event. And he started going into how many people usually come to an event in a car, and I said, no, how many people can go to the event? I had to ask him 3 times, and he told me 300. And I can't say if I remember if he said about 300 or if he said 300. Because on his website, which the inside of the building looks very nice, looks like a nice place to have a reception, it's 350 people. So even with his estimate on how many people are in a car, the people that live across the street from that lane, she can expect 100 to 120 cars, light shining in her living room window every time there's an event when they leave. But one good thing, so far there hasn't been an increase in trash on the road. I just want to know what type of criteria is used when someone does not go along with the known building codes, the permits that he needs, does his building, spends all the money, and then comes and cries to you, well, I've spent all my money. Now I need the zoning, the variance given. And you guys admitted the last time this happens every few years. What kind of criteria are you going to set up so this doesn't keep happening? I mean, I live in the country for a reason. I don't want the bright lights. I don't want all the traffic, and I'm stuck with it now. So when do I find out how you are going to have some type of penalty, whatever, when somebody wants this variance? I mean, he's scot-free. He's got his building, he's got his business, and we're stuck with it. So that's what I have to say. I intend to stay for the area plan meeting next too.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Steve Wright, Commissioner for Grant County, and just have a question when it comes to the last topic that you were talking about within your meeting. I heard Mr. Hess's name twice. Is he your legal representation now?
No, he is not. We're getting a new one.
So
I assume the APC is going to have a vote on that, possibly
But
tonight.
why are we using legal representation when he's not our legal representation?
Well, we've been in between attorneys, you know.
Understand
we're
that.
And he is a very
tonight.
good zoning attorney, as you know.
I do. And
And sometimes I have consulted with him because we were using the same attorney
so,
as the commissioners were using.
okay, so let me
There
speak,
could be a
please.
conflict in
Let me
that.
speak, please. Are we paying him for his legal advice?
You are not.
Okay,
The county is not.
okay.
Never has.
And who would be paying him? Because I'm sure he's not looking at this thing for free.
No, he would not be. And I have paid him.
So you personally have paid him out of your own pocket?
Yes, because it's good for me to know what's correct and what's not.
So you're using your own attorney for county business? Just
On
ask,
occasion,
just asking a
I would
question.
consult a zoning attorney, and I've consulted more than one. But that's not a matter for this board to discuss, really.
Well, it is if you're using his name within it to say that he is giving you a
Well,
recommendation, Mr.
If
Hartman.
someone would like to know who it is, I'm not afraid to tell them.
Well, we heard that twice tonight, and that's the reason I'm asking the question. I don't know about how you all feel, but if Mr. Hartman is using his own personal attorney to represent this board, I would have some concerns in that. I really would.
To represent
I-
the board or to give an opinion?
If you're using his recommendation to go through the things that Mr. Malat was seeking and trying to get that, and that's what you were doing, you were using your own private attorney to get that information and then convincing the board of what they possibly should do. And that's where I'm having a real struggle with this. And you're our representative from the commissioners, and I'm just trying to get a handle on this.
You know,
but
when you appoint someone, that doesn't mean you direct their thoughts or what they do.
I'm not trying to direct your thoughts.
You appoint someone to a position to do the best they can. And if consulting with an outside attorney for another opinion is a problem, I don't think it is. I think it's a good way to get more advice and appropriate opinion as well.
Okay,
I don't think he gives bad advice.
your opinion? I
That's
have a different
correct,
opinion.
my opinion.
Yep, okay, thank you very much.
I'd like to address that also. Don't we have an attorney that's supposed to be here?
David Glickfield is our new attorney.
Yes, and where
His
is he?
his mother fell in Florida,
Yeah.
and he is in Florida with his family trying to get her moved back up to Indiana.
Oh,
That's the only
we're still
reason.
paying him, right?
He just started, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have an attorney here, and you were concerned about Ed's opinion about an attorney. So, what's the issue? You know, that's what I want to, I don't think he's trying to influence the board. He's just stating what his personal opinion is through what he's talked to with his personal attorney. He doesn't represent us. But we would like to have an attorney here every time we have a meeting. That, yeah, our attorney has a problem with, whatever's going on. But there needs to be legal representation sitting here of some kind, someone. That's all I have on that. Go ahead.
Steve, I don't need to hear Ed talk about Mr. Hess for me to have my opinion about whether Ryan should be making decisions that this board, I believe, because I think Ryan would tell you more than once, I keep saying, Ryan, why are you wearing the target, man? Why are you taking the arrows? You've got an area planning commission, board of zoning appeals to do that for you, because I don't want him to be that person that puts himself in a position to receive criticism for decisions that he makes when there's boards that are to assist with those decisions. So I'm not influenced by Ed's attorney statements whatsoever. Thank you.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Got one.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Good evening. Meeting adjourned.